Excellent.
All
Very good.
right. Dan from New Jersey, you are here
Yes.
live in the flesh.
Excited. Thank you so much for having me. Love the
Yes.
opportunity, and I'm looking to give back to your followers here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Whoever's watching this, because it's going to be posted on YouTube. Um, Big idea of these calls is for if you are a parent or a coach watching this, Dan's going to ask me questions. We're going to go through kind of who he is, what he does, and what he's gotten from my content, as well as he just has his own questions. And hopefully, for watching this, you see yourself in Dan and you get as much benefit from my content as possible. That's my goal. So we ready?
All set. Yeah. So I'll just introduce myself. My name's Dan. I'm a 41-year-old dad from New Jersey. I have an 8-year-old and 5-year-old daughter. I've also a phys ed teacher for 20 years. In regards to my softball experience, I've been coaching high school softball since 2011. An infield assistant coach at a local high school currently. I'm the director of softball operations at an indoor facility, trying to build that following because it's mainly baseball. I'm trying to bring softball into that facility. I'm a board member on my local town's rec and travel organization, trying to, you know, develop their players as best as possible, as well as their coaches. And probably my most challenging role right now, but most rewarding, is being the head coach of my daughter's 8-year-old rec team. So trying to excite these girls about the sport we're so passionate about. So that's just a little bit about myself.
I love that. Number one, you are like my ideal person I need to be talking to right now because you have so many hats that you wear. Obviously, you love softball and very passionate about the growth of softball because of your daughters. So you're a coach and you're a dad, and I love this. What are your current goals so far in maybe, let's say, as you're growing softball in the facility and maybe as a dad and what your is to do as you coach your team?
I love that you asked that question because goals are always evolving. In 2011, being a head high school coach, I wanted to be good at everything. I wanted to know everything. I wanted to know everything about pitching, infield, the catcher position, small ball, bunting, slapping, and it's a big job, but again, a lot of us want to take that on. And as I've gotten older, my plan A, being a high school softball coach, is now on plan W with where I am in my softball trajectory. And so for the facility wise, the more professional end of things, I'm looking to develop something in regards to having a place where young athletes can come and they're taught the most up to date skills and drills and the way their body moves and the fluidity of these throwing and catching movements, which is I think what our specialties are, what we're trying to get better at every day. And then in regards to my daughter's rec team, I put on a different hat and I'm looking for fun, engagement, movement, and because there's not a lot of time to teach a ton of the fundamental. You don't have 2 hours with these 8-year-olds. You have a couple minutes. So being an elementary phys ed teacher, you understand the amount of time that you have. So if you keep them moving and keep them having certain jobs, like I'm a big, with the rec under the rec umbrella, I'm huge with being a good teammate, being vocal, speaking up for yourself, backing up plays. So they're not just standing there playing in the sand and the bad rap that we get with the low level or beginning level softball ages. So I'm looking at ways to get them excited and to also speak for themselves in an appropriate way and, just have fun playing, trying to get through this more developmental age so they stick with it.
I love that. I love that you definitely have two very distinct goals, and I feel like I'm very similar in that regard in the different age groups that I teach. Definitely 8 to 10 group. It's all right, let's learn some life skills. Let's learn how to focus. Let's learn how to learn. Let's make sure the game is super fun so that nothing else hinders our ability to be there and learn. So I love that. All right. Um, okay, so let's go into, and I don't know if you have prepared different pain points for all the different hats, because honestly, I mean, we have been in communication on social media for years and years.
Mhm.
One of the reasons why I picked you to be this first person on on this type of video call was because you've known kind of my evolution of what I teach, and you've been around the game so long in so many different capacities. But yeah, I guess my next question is, what's your biggest pain point in your role, and whether that be whichever role that you want to talk about?
So, pain point meaning just be a little bit more.
I guess a challenge that you face as um heading that growth in softball in your facility. Is there any pushback? Are there dads that want to, I don't know, voice their opinions that maybe don't have the experience that you have, and maybe think that you coaching the rec team in a way where you're pushing fun and excitement versus more mechanics and seriousness in 8 year olds? What kind of
It's
pushback?
the balancing is extremely challenging. I don't wanna say tough, I think we get into it knowing there's a challenge there. I think we are similar because I think we sometimes spread ourselves too thin, and we try to be too perfect with, "Hey, I have 60 minutes with this group. How can I squeeze out the best 60 seconds of every minute?" And then you kind of feel guilty if you don't get it done. So I rack my brain. I'm constantly racking my brain about being so efficient because I know these families are so busy and stretched thin with, hey, they might be playing softball, but they also have, a volleyball game, or they're in theater, or they're doing other things. In regards to, you know, uh, and we're not all cut from the same mold. And at times when there's a rainy day, I am on Instagram. I keep going through reels and trying to get content. But I don't think everybody has that time or has those routines where they're constantly in the know of, all these influencers with their drills, skills, the way they address something. So that fluidity in my mind is always there, and I find it difficult or the time to train other coaches to do what you want to do. And not saying that I'm right, like I'm not the one that knows it all, but hey, when you get a couple adults trying to help out, wow, that you realize how much they're unaware of and how to teach something and how to express something, where I think that is one of my main goals and what I want to do with this facility is, and also locally coaching the coaches, coaching the help, getting appropriate help instead of babysitters. I want, those people, doing things that are going to be effective for these young ones, especially those that 8-year-old age where they're so young but learn so quickly.
Yeah. You bring up a lot. Like, that's in terms of coaching the coaches, coaching the help. I think that is probably the biggest thing that I hear from organization heads is we have so many people that want to volunteer and help, but sometimes they do more harm than good in different ways, right? Or they find out they're the help, and then they go and just cram all this information. And in reality, as coaches, our job is to simplify that for the kids, right? To know it. Um, and that's a huge ask for like a volunteer, like somebody that raised their hand and just said, "Okay, I'll do it." And you're putting balls on the tee, and you're making sure the kids aren't hitting each other, and then you also have to teach them like something that you've just like, okay, what are the key points right now, so I'm not going back to my baseball or softball days before. So it's a big ask. So heard. And yeah, I guess that's one of the reasons why a lot of my content recently has been geared towards coaches with the coach manual and that sort of thing. But even then, it's a lot of information to digest.
And when you're trying to develop whatever program you're developing, and I'm not going to get into, if you agree or disagree with the way somebody teaches something. I think there's more than, one way to skin a cat. But when you want to present the way you do it, it has to be consistent
Yes.
from the bottom up, and that takes a lot of time and effort. And I don't know, some people are into, have that time cut out, but the volunteer may not be ready for that, and that's a challenge.
Yeah. Definitely a challenge. I'm just going to speak to it really quick because I'm thinking of my rec clinics that I'll put on. I'll put on like a 4 hour clinic, go 8 to 10 you kids and a 12 plus section, but we split the clinic up into 4 hours, and depends on what the league president wants, but a lot of times we'll go an hour with the coaches, then an hour with the kids, an hour with the coaches, an hour with the kids. And we're all there for the kids. So sometimes a league person is just like, let's just go 15 minutes with the coaches. I'm like, okay, you know, whatever, like I will do what
Mhm.
is wanted because I like working with the kids. Sometimes it is I have more fun because I get to be silly. I get to like, I get to be me. But with the coaches, I think that it's such a helpful session for them to get an hour instead of me. Because back in my package deal days, having an hour of defense and having 60 kids and then coaching the workers in your 5 minutes between the sessions. I mean, that's a rush. That's like when you sweat and you're like, okay, I got 12 workers. I need to tell them two things at each station that are the key points, not the 20 things I know about this one thing, the two things that they're looking for, and the one thing that they're saying to each kid that they're looking, and that's the adjustment. So then kids are going through the 8 stations, the 4 stations, however many stations you have, and they're actually learning instead of like looking at you with glazed eyes and they're just either bored or they're overwhelmed. Like there's no in between.
And I think we struggle with we meaning me and you and the people like us. We want them to know the 20 bullet points. Like hammer this out, not in a like a work militant way, but these are important to know. But us allowing that to slide and just say, hey, pick two, you pick two, keeping it simple. You know what? It's unrealistic for them to remember all of these things, even though we know the importance of it. And then that you can tack on with just the consistency of when you do this every day for 10 minutes, these other things will pop up. I'll reiterate this, and it's very tough to chop for me too. And that's the challenge.
It's definitely a challenge. I did bunts
Hmm.
this last week, and I had all these reasons why you have to communicate, all these things, and I'm like so passionate about it. And the kids in reality are like, "What do we do? What do you want me to do?" And then when you just remember, okay, one or two things, they can actually have fun with it, and then they get it. So it's really to your benefit to keep it simple, but it's difficult.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Any questions that you have for me?
So I have a couple.
Yeah.
So, knowing you for a while, and I wanted to ask me why I follow you, and there's a reason why I follow Morgan Stewart and Defense Club and Groundwork, and I've been an advocate of the package deal back in 2018. I've been to 2 events as a coach. Got you Starbucks, I think, at one, if I
Yeah.
recall, and
MVP.
and I just love the way the way you present information to the kid, and through your posts and through your content, it's very light but competitive. There's joking around, um, but I like the small groups. I like what you're doing in small spaces. I like that it's constant. I know that that's a thing. Like when I go to my phone in the morning and have my 15 minutes, I go, yours always pops up, and a lot of it is, I'm going to say a lot of it, but there's the repeated stuff with those hexagon pieces and the PVC and the hand placement, but it just helps keep me lubricated up here. And I don't have to go back to, hey, what was this again? Yeah, I'm constantly in the know, and I love that. I also liked your most recent post, one of my favorites, about the 18 seconds.
Yeah.
And I'm going to quote you here if I could find it. Yeah, the 18 seconds between pitches is the most important emotionally charged part of your game. And thinking about third and fourth grade rec softball, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of downtime.
Maybe you got
And
a
what are
little
you?
more than 18 seconds, but
A little more when the catcher overthrows the pitcher and vice versa. Um, but what are you thinking of, especially when I'm watching high school softball? I listen to the verbal intent of the shortstop. What are they saying? Are they just saying, "Hey, all right, 2 outs. Where are we going with the ball?" Or are they? Can you tell they have the pitcher's back? Can you tell? Hey, get us a ground ball here. And I'm looking at those are the things I think that sets girls apart. Those little things that I don't even know if they realize it. And I think more should be spent on the intent of your words And what are you doing? Are you cleaning up your workspace, dragging your cleats across the dirt and making it smooth? What are you doing with that time to get your mind right instead of, oh, my dad's upset. Oh, look at the coach. Oh, this. And then don't hit the ball to me. What am I going to do? And I think you cover all of that. You cover the drill aspect of it. You cover what you have to do outside of your lessons. And you also do a tremendous job. I see girls always writing stuff down at a station, even though some kids are like, ugh, I don't want to write, I want to do. But that is probably more important
Yeah.
than anything that they're doing. So I just wanted to give you a plug and everything that you've done.
No, I
Um,
appreciate that.
no, seriously, because the one analogy I have with what you do, because I saw you at the Angels game and you were promoted there with the best lessons in California or the West Coast. I forget what it said, but I equated it to like coffee mugs. I have 15 coffee mugs in my cabinet. How many do I use? Two, me and my wife. And we just rinse them and use the same one. So in terms of content creators, I have like 3 or 4 that I just go to because you're consistent, you're good, you're into it, and the information is just spectacular. So if I go to 20 accounts, you start to, analysis by paralysis. What's the best of the best with the footwork? And you start to second guess yourself and you never get anywhere. So another reason why you're whatever you're doing, it takes a lot of time with the camera work and the editing and whatever you're doing is just I'm very grateful to have that at my
No, I love that. And I just have two responses to that, and one way to train those 18 seconds, just because I know somebody's going to ask this question, is that 21 outs game that we play. And 21 outs is you shrink down that 18 seconds becomes 4 seconds, right? In between the coach hitting, and I'm not talking about just like the
Mhm.
rapid fire that we do in lessons, but when actually uh, you've got a field and you're doing 21 outs with your number one defense out there, that's what the game feels that fast because it is so emotional, because this is the test, because this is when it matters, this is when the pressure's on. So when you play that 21 outs game, and I've done this with teams when it's just me, and I know the girls are nervous, I know it's not their typical, so it's silent. Like the first time we do it, it's silent, and I'm like, guys, what are we doing? Like, we're playing this game. This isn't even a real like 21 outs. And then you've got to coach them up. Okay, when are you talking? Who are you talking to? And it's not just talking, it's what are you thinking about? So yeah, I'm very, very passionate about that side, just because in reality, like that's what's gearing you up to be aggressive in your first step. That's what's preparing every single other mechanic. Because if you don't have that and you don't have the mindset piece, then that's when things never, ever, ever translate in your training. So yeah,
Absolutely.
that's why we're infield coaches, right? We're
Oh,
like,
and that's something that I'll go back to the original question of like my goals, and I realized, hey, I'm the jack of all trades, but the master of none, and it got a little bit too much. And I said, what do I like? What is the best part of this game for me? I like hitting, don't love it. I love teaching it. There's just so many variables for me to connect with the kid. But infield, like in order, like I think Bill Edwards from Hofstra at a clinic I was at in Cherry Hill mentioned, you got to be able to throw and catch. You can't play the game if you can't throw and catch. So you can hit all you want, but to find the field is going to be a little bit difficult if that's the only thing you can do. So that's why I love it, because that's the foundation of this game. And groundwork, I love the word groundwork because it starts from the bottom up. I use that metaphor a lot. Like everything starts with your legs, not your hands. We got to start somewhere. Just that groundwork for me is so important, and I don't think there's any shortcut in this game than by bypassing this aspect of it: throw, catch, and receive. I just think it's so important. So I'll go into my first conversation piece with what's your personal like hierarchy of development? So like Maslow's hierarchy of needs with like food and water and stuff. So if you had number one, this is if I'm taking a generic softball player that's interested in softball, where am I starting to build with them? Is it knee work? Is it glove manipulation? What is it for you? Where would you like to start?
I always start with vision of the ball. Vision. Okay. And that can be broken down into different aspects. But if I'm watching somebody play catch, I'm going to watch them play catch. I'm going to watch them field a ground ball. Like those two things, and I will know everything that I need to know. Majority of the kids that I get for the first time, they'll play catch, and they're not moving their feet to get in front of the ball. Uh, that's probably the main thing that I'm watching is what their feet do, because if their feet aren't moving, if somebody is maybe a little bit above their level or they're not ready for their ball, they're catching the ball behind their eyes. And I just, it just makes my skin crawl, that kind of thing. Because again, to your point, if we can't, defense is catching and throwing. That's it. That's all it is. And then as far as fielding a ground ball, so many things impact our ability to see the ball into our glove. If we can see the ball, we can catch the ball. Um, so majority of kids that come into a lesson for the first time, they field the ball in between their insteps. So behind the line of their toes, in between, they're squatting down, they're essentially fielding it underneath their butt. And I just hate that. So that's when we go into kind of our first set of, I guess, most fundamental drills I'll have are knee picks, right? We're setting up our posture, we're cutting off our legs because uh, when we can feel and understand where our glove should be in relation to our eyes, it shouldn't be underneath our eyes. We need to create that angle so our head doesn't have to move. I think one of the things, I've got so many tools, but one of the tools that I use are these ground ball glasses, which I like because it teaches a discipline that we definitely have to move our head, but I don't want them to move it so they're jostling their vision and they're losing. Like whenever we move our head a ton, we're losing space and we feel rushed. So I want us to get to a point where that movement is maybe this versus this. Why are we moving our head so I can so the batter can see the crown of my head? Why? Just get our hands out in front and meet the ball out in front. So vision would be my top, and then everything kind of comes after that. Vision, and that will fix a whole lot. Then I will look at the throw, because if our arm is injured, we can't play. So we're looking at how we're throwing. Majority of kids, again, will be opening their front side early, not generating force in the proper way. Um, a lot of kids will field the ball and serve a pizza instead of ball down. And then lastly, even though it's probably my favorite part, is footwork, right? So those three keys are vision, our throw, and our footwork. I would say within 30 minutes of working with the kid, I can get them to be a whole lot more aware. I won't say a whole lot better in that first
Right.
30 minutes, because that's throwing is the toughest habit to break, especially if the kid throws hard. And it's cool that they throw hard, but if they throw hard and they have no idea where they're going, no idea where it's going, or they throw hard and they're throwing to kids that can't catch the ball, then they start to develop weird habits. So long answer, but those three things.
I
Yeah.
love the answer. I was just on a webinar with Austin Wasserman last night, picking his brain about things, just about the throwing, because I really want to understand it to
Hmm.
teach it. And then, when you listen to people that are trying to teach it that may not have the background, you have to navigate a sensitive way on how to massage that into the group. That's another challenge for me, is
Yeah.
how to those boundaries with other instructors or volunteer coaches trying to teach something, because that's what they learned when they were growing up. I also, I think back to when we have to start this stuff. I think 8 years old, even younger, because I'm sure you see a lot of the same patterns and fears, and they catch the ball away from them, or a lot of this,
Yeah.
trying to, the bowl of soup, and I'm like, ooh, the fingers, and I kind of go to the equipment that's available for the kid. The
Yeah.
glove and the hand strength, like it's so small, the ball's big, it's almost a detriment to the development of the kid right now. And I'm like, man, this is a multi-million dollar idea of developing a glove where, hey, I can catch successfully here and I'm not worried it's going to hit me, because it takes kids when they get hit by a pitch at 8 years old, they're turned off from the game. They don't want they're
Yeah,
done.
they're done.
Or they hurt their finger badly, they're done. And I want to eliminate that fear early on. I know using tennis balls and stress balls help, but when it comes to playing and they take one off they take one, it's hard to get them back. Here, you know, which I'm trying to think about a better way to
Yeah,
do
I
that.
mean, that's why masks are now like a huge thing for softball because I mean, what's the cost? Okay, the cost is maybe you don't look as cool or you don't like whatever.
Mhm.
I didn't wear a mask, but I also wasn't playing softball when I was 8. I was
Right.
like back with the boys playing little league, learning how to catch and throw with a baseball, and it's I don't know. I am not going to tell somebody to take a mask off because I want to have the pride of, hey, you don't need to wear a mask. I don't know. You tell me if you need to wear a mask.
Right.
Are you
Right.
ready to not to feel like you can defend your face? Great.
Hmm.
Take it off. If you're not ready, keep that sucker on.
Hmm. Absolutely. Another question I have for you is that work versus fun balance. I know you mentioned it in another post not too long ago about, we're having, I think, too much fun, and I don't know what we're getting out of the lesson. So, and this is same thing with teaching too, whether it's in the classroom, the kids are looking to be entertained. And sometimes that seesaw tips in the wrong direction where then you come out of the lesson and you're saying like, well, what did we do? Did we just do 15 silly relay races for the sake of them being engaged? Or did they learn? What was the work? Sometimes the work, it's not always the most fun thing, but the work has to happen. How do you manage that during your time?
Yeah, to your point, we came across this as a staff, and I'm like, "What are we doing here?" I'm annoyed because we're getting mad at them for not being focused, but then we're rewarding them with a game because we want them to be focused. So let's go back to the drawing board, and I really thought about just my 3 rules of lessons. Right, eye contact, hustle, and make adjustments. So I think my favorite coaches growing up were always the ones where I knew what to expect. If you don't know what to expect from a coach, you don't have that consistency in your leadership from the top down, then nothing really matters. I mean, and you can say that about a ton of different things in life, but your leader needs to be consistent. So if I'm consistent with upholding that standard of eye contact, hustle, make adjustments, they know how to act and they know how to work, and then we can, and it's not reward and consequence, but in terms of balance, kids like having rules like that. They, especially with 8 to 10 you girls, it's like, okay, run to the station. If I see one person not running, everybody's gonna have 3 burpees. And it's like they police themselves. Hey, I don't want to do burpee. Let's let go. Right. It's not about, oh, this whole practice sucks because the coach is too strict. It's like, no, they want to know what to do. They want to know what to do. And then yeah, as far as fun, there's a lot of reasons why I include competitions or relay races or just different aspects of that. And most of it has to do with getting kids out of their shell in general, like making it okay for them to go for it without having to be perfect and putting it in the shell or mask of softball. A lot of times kids can throw a rock better than they can throw a ball, because when they put a ball in their hand, they're like, oh, I have to do
Hmm.
this, I have to do this, like all these weird habits that they've developed from whatever, maybe potentially being overcoached. And some of my girls that I've had for a long time, I'm like, wow, you're getting to elbows up like this instead
Hmm.
of like this. And you've been doing that for like a few months now. And that's my bad because I haven't
Hmm.
understood like that correction or that cue that you need needs to be different. So there is a balance, but as long as you have standards and you're consistent with your standards, I think you can have as much fun as you want. But in terms of the work, the actual drills, um, I have come to terms with this after being a coach where kids can opt in or opt out, families can opt in and opt out. Whether they come to my practice doesn't dictate if they're playing in their game or not. I have determined that the kids that are successful in sports or in life, they're going to do the work outside of my lessons.
Hmm.
And the ones that maybe aren't successful or they learn these lessons later, they might not be ready to do the work or they're not going to be college softball players. And that has to be okay. But as long as my product is teaching them, my product is having clear rules, and my product is treating everybody with respect and demanding that respect in return, that's all I can do.
Yeah, the controllables, which is great. And they, I think the younger we miss that boat when they're young, very tough to get it back when they're, in middle school and especially in high school.
Yes.
And it's funny how the game pays you back. My daughter, I'm not going to go over her skill level, but she's learning. She made a base running mistake, fly ball. She's on first base, fly ball. Everybody's yelling, and she gets doubled off and didn't understand why. And she felt that embarrassment of she did something wrong. So as the dad at third, I just watched her and I said, "Wow!" Like my heart broke as a dad seeing her, but I said, "This is good to feel it and see how she responds." And not nobody's hollering or yelling. I
Yeah.
just wanted to talk to her afterwards, and she had tears in her eyes because she was embarrassed. She didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
The next inning on defense, fly ball, and she catches a fly ball, and all was forgotten. Right, like the sadness, the embarrassment. She was elated, and I said, "Wow, there is some aura, teaching you things. There's a reason why that happened, and a reason why this happened." And I almost said to the parents, and I've been saying this the last year. I said there should be a rule when the ball's in play. Nobody talks but the kids. Let the kids figure it out. Let
Oh,
the kids figure it out. And I said that's because every coach and every parent, and there's a parent and there's 10 fielder, and it's a mess. And they're just so anxious about getting that ball, and then they come up and they don't know what to do
yeah.
because they hear everything. There's colors everywhere. Sometimes the umpire's behind the pitcher. And I said, this isn't a good environment. I said, maybe we just be quiet, see what they do. I know it's impossible, but that's my thought of how they'd be better off. But they're not really playing pickup softball games anymore um, after school. I don't know if that's really going on.
Yeah.
Um,
Imagine if there was a sandlot or there were
that-
wiffle ball games or kickball even, right?
yeah,
I learned some of like I had the most fun at recess playing kickball. And I I don't know. It just doesn't happen as much.
it's funny you say that as a phys ed teacher. I'm on recess duty all the time, and I watch the kickball games, and you can see the base running anticipation and where to go with the ball, and they learn tagging up pretty
How cool
quickly
is
after
that?
they just from that. And I said, wow, maybe some kickball because it's you're not really getting hurt with the Voight rubber
Oh,
ball. It's more, and I
we
said,
are all
wow,
over that in my summer camp. We're gonna do wiffle ball and kickball, and we are gonna rock it. I
that's
don't even
it.
care what anybody says. We're gonna do
That's
it.
it. Good stuff. Good stuff. I know we're short on time here. I know you asked for maybe some advice, to give
Yes.
give out
Yes,
some
let's do
advice.
it.
So I had two or three things just from my experience. Take it for what it's worth. And as this is coming from a parent and a coach, I'm a big advocate of getting involved in your town, whatever it is, because if you watch things, it's not really going to get better. And I think the more that are invested in it, I think everybody's intentions are usually in the right direction. So get involved in your town, be an asset to your board because everybody needs help, volunteer help, whether it's even the snack stand or getting a clinic going or fundraising to get your kids a better experience. I also think, developing your coaches, like I said, I think people have to come in or find local experienced high school coaches that can explain how to run a practice, how to get their groups going, how to transition from station to station. A way to educate your coaches, I think, is so important. And because you only know what you know.
Mhm.
Um, and like I said, consume content like 10 minutes a day. I know there's these rituals. I'm reading a lot of Ryan Holiday. I don't know if you know the Stoic Ryan Holiday, and he has like a daily meditation thing. So 2 minute read. I feel good that I did it. I drink my coffee. I make my breakfast. Then I go on Instagram to freshen up. So make this a habit for yourself if you think it's important or you want to make a difference. It takes 10 minutes a day. Um, and I use this example too of the exponential growth it has as somebody as a learner, right? So say you're in the market for a car, or you like a pair of shoes a celebrity was wearing, and you see them on somebody else, or you see that car being driven around more often. It's because you're more aware of it and you're more in tune, and it's something you're kind of into and interested in. What if you were like that with your softball content too? You just become a better instructor. Whether you're a novice coach or not, you just get better at it by those little doses every day. That's something I suggest. I also, another analogy here is, if you try to embed yourself, hey, I'm going to go to a highly intense 2 day clinic or coach's clinic, or a 1 week, oh my gosh, a 1 week camp, and you're saturated with this, or your summer schedule is so intense, and then you take that break. Um, that fluidity, that lubrication kind of wears off. I said it's almost like buying that 10-pound tub of Costco mac salad, where you're like, oh, I'm in the mood for mac salad. I'll have it Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and then you don't want it anymore for like a month
Yeah,
or
it
two
gets thrown
months
away.
because you're so into it for such short periods of time. Where I think that little dose is is so important. And I think everyone has to realize that every town and every family and every team's situation is unique. There's not a one drill fix for anything. It's more of, hey, this is good information. How can I use it for my kid or my team or my town? And, have a good pulse on your environment and what you have. You might not have the field facilities, you might not have the funds, you might not have the team or the talent, but what can you do for your group to allow them to at least grow in any capacity? I think that's super important as well.
Yeah, and I think one thing I just have one more point. One thing we forget is sometimes if someone's still watching this video at this point, you're probably a very passionate softball person, but I think something that we forget, I definitely forget, is that majority of parents that have their kid in softball are not you and I. They are not the person that is wanting to get involved. They're like, this is what my kid does. I'm going to take her to games. I'm her number one fan, taking her to lessons. Isn't that enough? Holy cow. Like I haven't, I'm paying for all of her stuff. I cannot imagine just how much emotional, financial, and just energy that goes into being a softball parent without being like you and I. But um this is why softball or youth sports is so unique in that how you are as a parent and how you educate yourself as a parent, not on the drills, not on maybe exactly what you have to do, but if you are just a parent in this space, understanding how your reaction and how you educate yourself on how to support your kid um, is probably the biggest investment that you're going to make in them, because their identity is tied to their sport, at least for this time in their lives, which is a very impactful time of their lives. Because say they play softball from ages 6 to 21, that's who they are. It's part of them, right? Not maybe not if they win or lose or are an All-American or win a World Series or whatever the case might be. Maybe that's not part of them, but them as an athlete and how you interact with them as an athlete is part of them. So, to that respect, I would say it's very, very important to be invested on that level. So like, to your point, hey, if you're interested in learning about what kind of shoes, I for a while I was like watching all these golf videos, and now I'm like trying to learn about the stock market and like just be educated and like just different things. And I'm like, oh my God, I know nothing. But if you just take that 10 minutes and you're invested into, all right, being a parent of a youth athlete and how you can best support. Maybe that is following me. I don't know. Because
Maybe.
what I have realized is I make a lot of content for kids because I'm thinking, okay, this is the kid that I used to be. This is what I would love to do. But in reality, when I watch my content back, I'm like, wow, I'm teaching adults how to interact with kids. I'm
Hmm.
not necessarily, the kids don't really care about all these drills. The
Right,
kids
right.
are like going and playing. They're already having their experience. And in
Yeah.
reality, think my key is understanding that I'm really just showing the interaction.
Yeah, and I guess I'll end it with this because I'm the dad in the produce section taking an orange and figuring out different like ways I could move and like tossing to myself and my wife shaking her head like, what are you doing? You know, the memes of, you're married to a baseball guy or softball when he's doing drills but I'm also realizing because I asked my daughter, I said, hey, do you like daddy coaching? She goes, I love it. I love it. I said, why? And she goes, just because you're there. It had nothing to do
Yeah.
with what you know. And what was great about it was because I always now have in the back of my mind, how can I show her a good example of an adult? Whether how you treat an umpire, how you speak to kids, how you handle, maybe not great situation, how you handle it. Just they absorb that, and that's something that really was eye opening, and I work on all the time, which I think is
So
important.
important. So
Yeah.
important. All right, Dan. Thank you. I
This was
think
Thank
we
you.
wrapped up.
I thank you for your time. We'll be in touch. I appreciate the opportunity. I really do. I'll be following you.